Hari Om, my friends. In the previous lecture, I explained some background of yoga and therapy. And the aim of therapy is overcome the problem of disease and bring the health to normal. So definitely it is connected with health. In more properly, disturbed health. The word itself is very appropriate. We use the word disease. Disease is a disturbed health. So we would like to correct the disturbed health and bring it to normal health. That is the purpose and aim of every therapy. So we'll understand something about ease and disease. First we must know what is ease, and then we'll find out what is disturbed ease, and then we'll try to bring it to normal health or ease. Now, ease is a normal condition of health. And it's very critical to explain exactly normal condition of health. Because it's already there, and all these medical experts from different therapies also, they have tried to establish, we can say, the definition of health. And once it is established and approved, then we can say if it is disturbed, then we can just find out something abnormal compared with normal. So first we have to define what is a normal health. Because we have to bring the abnormal health to normal conditions. So abnormal health is disease. And for this purpose, different therapies, they use the different ways and means. All this modern medicine, they use mostly the different chemicals in the form of medicines. And of course, they carry out some surgeries and all that also. In Ayurveda, they use mostly the herbs for bringing the disturbed health to normal health. Homeopathy has got all macro medicines prepared out of normal elements which are available in nature. So likewise, every pathy has got certain principles and certain ways and means to handle the situation. So we'll start with the meaning of definition of health. What is health actually? Yes, health is a normal condition. But this is just change of word. What is exactly the normal condition of the body is? So previously, it was commonly defined as health is absence of disease. Even this was accepted by the World Health Organization also many years back. Ayurveda also has given a definition of health, but Ayurveda has defined this health maybe about 3000 years ago. And since 3000 years, the same definition is accepted till today also. Because that is a perfect definition of health, which has been designed long back by the experts of Ayurveda. But what definition the World Health Organization has given, they had made many changes. Is it interesting to know what changes they have made? Of course, they are for the better. And I think they are approaching to the definition of Ayurveda only. May not be fully, but partly. So the latest definition of health, as mentioned by World Health Organization, WHO, The health is a state of complete physical, mental and social well-being and not merely absence of disease. So initially it was absence of disease, but that is totally rejected now. Just the absence of disease is not health. It is absence of disease, that's all, but it is not health. So health comprises of physical, mental and social well-being. So the definition is widened to this extent. And recently, WHO has added to this definition also that ability to lead socially and economically productive life. So the person must be able to give some productive output. He is not doing anything, then still he is not healthy. This is quite wide and exhaustive definition of health, definitely, which has been accepted by World Health Organization. It consists of many things which have been already explained by Ayurveda, but not totally. So let us see the definition of Ayurveda as mentioned in ancient texts 3000 years ago. Of course, it is in Sanskrit. Samadoshaha samagnischa samadhatu malakriyaha prasanna atmendriya manaha swastha iti abhidiyate. I will explain in English. The definition says that the balance condition, sama means balance, so balance condition of different components of the body, rather all components of the body. So balance condition of dosha, agni, dhatu and malakriya. And in addition, blissful condition of atma, indriya and man. Of course, all these are Sanskrit words. I need to explain each and every word in English for you, so that it will be more clear the definition of definition of Ayurveda. Now it is a balanced condition of dosha. There are three doshas, vata, pitta and kapha. You may be aware of at least these words. These are three energies in the body, and every energy has got certain function. Vata is a function of movements, all movements of the body, including heart, lung and hands and legs and all that. So all movements are controlled by the energy which is called vata. Pitta is an energy which converts. There are a lot of conversion are going on in our body. We take the food in particular. It is in a different pattern, different forms. It is converted to the elements which we need. So all these converting energy is vata. And kapha is an energy which holds everything together. There are a number of components, number of organs in the body. So everything is held together properly in a balanced condition. That energy is kapha. I explain very short. We need not go in details about this. But something like that. So all these three energy which keeps the body in perfect order. So those must be in balanced condition. If they are disturbed, if vata is disturbed, then somewhere some moment is disturbed. If pitta is disturbed, somewhere some conversion energy is disturbed. Or if kapha is disturbed, some holding together energy that gets disturbed. So that is disease. So when there is a perfect balanced condition of all three doshas, vata, pitta, kapha, then it is perfect health. In addition, agni. Actually, the meaning of agni is fire. But in the body, it is not exactly agni. It is also a converting food in particular. Our body needs carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, minerals, salts, all these components which contained in the food. But food is in a different form. So food needs to be digested properly. And proper conversion must be there so that our body can absorb whatever is needed. So that is all done by Agni. If Agni is poor, the digestion is poor. So Agni must perfectly operate in the body for conversion of food. So it mostly related with the digestion. And third is Dhatu. Dhatu is the basic elements, we can say, of the body. Not the organs, but the elements. So these are 7 elements, Sapta Dhatu. The first is digested food. Because we take the food, then we digest it, suitable to our body. So that is digested food is the first and basic element. It is converted into blood. So blood is the second basic element. Further it is converted to flesh. So third element. Then the fat. All these words you know very well. Then the bones and nervous system, and finally the reproductive system. So all these are the 7 basic elements of human body. So these must be in balanced condition. Just fat. If fat is increased, then definitely there is a overweight and obesity and all those problems are there. So these all 7 elements also must be in a perfect balanced condition. And here the word balanced condition is used. That is very important. It doesn't mean there is an equal proportion. They must be in such a proportion that they will manage the total function of body perfectly. Then it is called balanced condition. Then one more point is explained, that is Malakriya. That is all excretory function. See, we take so many things, some of that is needed for our body and some is not needed. So what is needed for the body is absorbed. But what is not needed, it is to be thrown off. So removing the unwanted material. Just as cleaning our house. We also bring so many things in our house, but whatever is not needed, we just throw it off. But we dispose it properly. Similarly, the unwanted material in our body is to be disposed of properly. It may be in the form of stool, urine, sweat, or maybe the nails. So these are all excretory functions. These also must be perfectly in balanced condition. If there is excessive motions, it is a disease. If there is no motion, that is also a disease. So motions must be perfect. Same case with all other excretory functions also. So Ayurveda has covered all the functions of the body and says that everything must be in a perfect balanced condition. So body will function perfectly. So that is what is called health. But still, definition is not complete. This is all about the physical body, different organs and different parts and different components of the physical body. But just physical body functioning properly is not the perfect health. So in addition to that, Ayurveda adds something which is still more important, which has been now accepted by World Health Organization recently. Is a blissful condition of Atma or soul. We call it individual consciousness. We can use any word, but ultimately it is the energy and knowledge form which is controlling whole the body structure. So that must be a blissful condition. If it is not blissful, definitely it is not proper health. Then Indriya is organs. Each and every organ, each and every component of the body must be in a blissful condition. If it is balanced, it is okay. That's a mechanical arrangement. But bliss is a mental status. It's not just physical one. So initially, Ayurveda explains all these physical components. Now it's coming to the mental status. So Atma, Indriya and Mana. Mana is mind. So Ayurveda has given a perfect definition. Part of it is for physical body, which I already seen now. That the balanced condition of dosha dhatu and malakriya. But that is not perfect and complete. So Ayurveda adds something to that, and that is the blissful condition of Atma, Indriya and Man. In first part, the physical components of the body were considered. Now in the second part, the mental parts, mental status is considered by Ayurveda. So that must be blissful, not just existing. Just existing is different and blissful condition is different. So this is Atma, that is soul. That is the individual consciousness, what we may call it. It's a energy and knowledge form, and that is controlling the whole body-mind structure. Of course, there must be something which controls our body-mind structure, and that is what is called Atma by Ayurveda. You may call it individual consciousness, but that must be in a blissful condition, not just existing, with blissful condition. Then it is explained that Indriya, that is all organs of the body. Now, organs also have got the mind. So they are also blissful, not blissful. They may function properly, but the blissful condition is still something addition to that. And Man is mind. It is not man, it is M-A-N, Man. It means mind. So mind also must be blissful. So in addition to the all physical parts and components of the body, Atma, Indriya and Man, that also must be in a blissful condition. Then only the person is called a perfect healthy person. Swastha iti abhidhiyate. This is a very wide explanation about the definition of health. And definitely all these points have been accepted recently by World Health Organization also, and they are included in their definition. They have modified the definition recently, which I already explained to you. So you see, this is the natural condition of mind and body. So we can say health is a God-given gift. We call it nature-given gift, it doesn't matter. So it is a gift to us. It is already given. That means every human being is given the full healthy body. And what we observe in practice that it gets disturbed. That is a cause for our study also. That health gets disturbed and then we have to maintain the health by giving some yogic practices and some treatment and all. But every human being is supposed to be healthy. Every human being borns with full health and is supposed to be healthy throughout the life. So even World Health Organization has agreed that health is a fundamental right. Food, shelter and clothing, these are supposed to be the fundamental rights. Now this is fourth one, health, which has been added recently as a basic fundamental right of every human being. In addition, we can say it is the central concept of quality of life. Just functioning, just doing something in life, maybe learning something, doing some job, earning some money, running with family, and finally dying. This is not a quality of life, you can say. The person must do some better work, good output, which can be helpful for the society also, for the others also. So that is what we call it a quality of life. So health is a concept of quality of life also. If health is not proper, life will not be good or blissful for himself or herself or for others also. So definitely maintaining the health, and rather I can say improving the health. This is also a recent concept accepted by modern science, that health can be improved. Otherwise, till that they are saying, oh, when health is maintained is okay. So maintaining the health, no speciality, because it already given to you. You are just maintaining it. What's special in that? If you improve the health, definitely you deserve some credit. So improvement of the health also is possible, in particular with the help of yoga. That's what we'll see in details, step by step. And also we can say, health is a major and sound investment to the life. We can invest the health and earn so many things out of it. If you have no investment, no business. Similarly, if you have no health, no life. Proper life, productive life, as said by WHO, there is no productive life, there is no health. So we can say it's an investment also. And it's an integral part of development. Without health, development is not possible. You have to develop your body, mind, your life, quality of life. So many things. So all these developments are possible only if there is a proper health. Just availability of abundant money is not sufficient for development of our life. It can develop the business, but not the life. For the life, definitely good health is required. So these are all very important points for the health which we must note. Because ultimately, our aim is to achieve the proper health for our students and patients. And yoga can provide all these things. There is one more plus point for us, and that is our body itself. As I told you, body is born with full, complete health, total health, which may satisfy the definition of World Health Organization as well as definition of Ayurveda also. So body is born with health, and there is one more important point, that body is designed to remain healthy. Maybe for 100 years, let us see. It means we are living in our day-to-day life, we are carrying out so many duties with the help of the body. We have to face different types of situations. So body has to face all these things. Something is positive, something is negative also. But the design of body made by nature is such that it should remain healthy for 100 years. That way there are some inherent qualities inside the body. In modern terminology, we can say there is a maintenance department also, which maintains the body properly. I can give some examples for this. You see, water content in the body is very important. Water level is very important. But we are consuming the water inside the body itself. And water level goes down. But when water level goes down, there is a sensation to us for drinking the water. That is thirst. Then we drink the water, and then water level again becomes normal. So body is managing it. If water level is normal, there is no sensation of thirst. If it is less, then definitely you have got a sensation of thirst. Similar for the food also. If body needs food, sensation is hunger. And when we take the food, we are satisfied, no hunger. These are about external things which you know very well, but I can tell you something internal also. A sugar problem. A diabetic patient, there is always a sugar problem. But I can tell you about healthy person, not about diabetic. That we'll see afterwards. Suppose in a healthy person, he eats more sugar. So definitely it is digested, converted, it is entering in the bloodstream and blood sugar level goes up. But that is not affordable by the body. But sugar is an essential component of the body. It is already there in the blood. Why to throw it off? Then there is an arrangement of storing sugar in the liver. So excess sugar, if we eat, that is stored in liver. And blood sugar level remains normal for the good functioning of the body. And in certain cases, if you don't take any food, then there is no sugar. So sugar level in the blood goes down. That is also not affordable. Then body take out the sugar from liver and the sugar level in the blood again is raised up and it is maintained. So whether you take excess sugar or whether you take don't sugar or even carbohydrates, body manages by itself. That is what I mean. That there is already some maintenance function is there which maintains everything properly. Our body has got number of joints. And when we make the movements, definitely there is a wear and tear. So to reduce the wear and tear, the lubrication is required. But we don't have to give external lubrication because body generates lubricants in different joints properly whenever needed. Because if lubrication is more, that is also troublesome. It is less, that is also troublesome. It must be proper. We don't know how much proper lubrication is needed. But body knows everything perfectly. So body generates proper lubrication and maintains all the joints 100 years without any complication. So likewise, there are so many things are there. If you study anatomy and physiology properly, you can come to this point. Yes, body is the best design of a machine, which remains perfectly healthy for 100 years without any external means. Just we have to feed food and water and air as we feed petrol or diesel to our car. But car cannot last such long things. Now this is what the natural arrangements are there. But as a human being, we are free to do so many things. So actually we are supposed to do some good and proper things for the body. But normally we do not. And that may be the basic cause for the disease. As far as possible, body is trying to avoid disease. There are so many ways and means are there. But still, our actions, they go to such an extent that it crosses the limit of the body. And the body also is not able to manage. And then the disease starts. So body can sustain for 100 years provided, that is more important for us, that we must use the body properly. Of course, body is supposed to carry out all work, physical, mental and everything, but within certain limits. So if we use our body properly, then body can sustain for 100 years. Secondly, we have to give rest to the body. And that's what is arranged in the form of sleep. So we must sleep for a certain period in the day. We cannot continue 24 hours using the body. It will not sustain. So it must be given proper rest. And of course it must be maintained. Actually body is maintaining by itself, no doubt, but still we are overloading the body functions. So we have to carry out certain maintenance externally also. So we must know what to do and all that, and then we must carry out proper maintenance. Basically providing food and water and air also is a form of maintenance of the body. So it must be maintained properly. So all these points have been already studied by different sciences, particularly the health sciences, in different cultures also. And everybody is calling this as rule of health. So if you want to maintain your health, you have to follow certain things. So these are called the rules for health. So they must be followed properly. So we'll come to the practical terminology. That we must know what are the rules for health and we must follow them properly. If you don't follow, the body will not be maintained properly and the disease starts. That is the disease condition. Disturb is the condition. If you maintain all rules properly, perfectly, then health is maintained. No question of disease. If you not follow properly, the health will get disturbed. So we'll see how it gets disturbed. So I can say some external components for unbalance of all these body components. We have seen that. If everything is balanced, it is perfect health. If the balance is disturbed, it is disturbed health. That is disease. The first more essential component is food. Because we take a lot of food, 2, 3, 4 times a day. And good quantity, but in different forms. There is a largest variety of foods everywhere. And that is the essential part. We must take the food. But we are taking all external material in our body. So our body must get adjusted with that. If you take the proper food, which is exactly needed for the body, then body has to work much less. If you take improper food, then body has to digest. The problem starts from the digestion itself. If it is not digested properly, you will not get the proper nutrients. So body will not function properly and results in disease. If you don't get proper food or proper quantity, then the same thing will happen. Body will not get proper nutrients. If you take excess food, that also is a problem. So we have to consider food very seriously. And we have to take the food which our body needs. Of course, individual body also needs different type of food. So that is a very big subject, rather we can say. That we have to study the body structure and then decide what food is needed, and accordingly we should manage our food. But in normal condition, we manage the food with our taste only, which is totally wrong. We don't think of what is needed by the body. We think of what is needed for the taste. And we take tasty only, which may not be proper for our body. So this also is to be considered. When the health is disturbed and you have to bring it to normal, then definitely you have to consider the factor of food, which plays very important role in maintaining health or disturbing health. then body is designed to make the movements. Body is not a one-piece bone. There are 213 bones in the body. Why these bones are there in small, small parts? Because body needs to make the movement. And for movement, we must have different parts and they are joined together to form the joints. So there are a number of joints in our body. Every joint has got its own limit for the movement. That varies from joint to joint. We are supposed to make the movements. But we should not make wrong movements which are not suitable for health. We should make the movements just suitable for health. So I written here M-O-U-R, that is very important. You see, M means misuse of body. We are using the body wrongly. Or overuse, we are using it over excessively. Now there is a heavy competition everywhere. And we have to struggle hard for survival also. So we can overload the body. But that is not good. That is not correct for maintaining the health. So there should be no misuse, no overuse, or underuse also is there. If you don't use certain parts, certain components, certain joints, definitely it will not work properly. That is what is happening in many of our cases. Just imagine our spine. It's 33 vertebrae are there. There is one disc in every 2 vertebrae. And because of the disc and the lubrication, we can make different movements of the spine. That means we can bend forward, we can bend backward, we can bend sidewards. We can twist also, left side, right side. So many movements are possible because of the different 33 vertebrae and disc and the lubrication and all this. We can say this is a perfect engineering design by nature for the spine. In addition, it contains all nerves also. But I am talking about the movements in particular. So when the spine is designed for making the movement in all the directions, we must make the movements in all the directions within limit. But what we do, you can just observe. We do normally forward bending movement throughout the day. Whether you are sitting on chair and writing on table or operating the laptop, it's a forward bending movement for the neck and lumbar region, waist. If you are cooking, it is also forward bending movement. If you are standing as a salesman, it's also forward bending. So full day, we make all forward bending movements and we never bend backward. Just imagine, we never bending backward. And the result, spine problems. Nowadays it is observed that most of the people, they are suffering with spine problem. Cervical spondylitis, lumbar spondylitis, slip disc, sciatica, so many names are there. It's all connected with spine problem, and basic cause for this problem is excessive forward movement in a day and no backward movement. So both of these reasons are there. So if the problem is created because of excessive forward movement, the solution is make the backward movement, which we can make easily in many of the asanas. So backward bending asanas is a very, very simple and definite solution for all the spine problems. So you can solve many of the spine problems just by practicing some backward bending asanas. So that is how we have to use our body. No misuse, no overuse, no underuse also, but use right use. So that our use, right use is very important. So we must know what are the different types of movements of our different joints and organs and what are the limits, and we must remain within limit and try to make all the movements, which is definitely possible in practicing different asanas. So we must give definitely proper credit to asanas, that it gives all the types of movements to our body and maintains all the joints perfectly. And one more interesting factor for maintenance of the physical body is mental behavior. See, mind is there in the body, but it is not seen. Nobody can see mind. Even the modern science or modern medicine, they are not able to see the mind, but they can't refuse. Mind is there. And we came to know that mind is there and it is perfect and it is powerful. It is controlling the whole body. And it controls the body, it maintains the body, and it can disturb the body also. Mind is all multifunction. So mind can totally disturb the body. And that has been accepted by modern medicine also. So this is some disease. They call it psychosomatic disease. It means disease that is functioning in the body is something different. Abnormal functioning of the body. So disease is physical, but cause is mental because of mind. And particularly mind in a sense, tension, stress. So there are most of the diseases, and nowadays the medical science says that every disease is partly psychosomatic. And for every disease, there is certain component of mind also plays important role for creating the disease and maintaining the disease, and also improving the disease also. But modern medicine doesn't have the medicine for mind. They have got medicines for the body. It works, no doubt, to some extent. Even if there are some side effects, but at least it works. It corrects the functions of body. But there is no medicine for correcting the functions of mind. So all these psychosomatic diseases, the patient have to take the medicine throughout the life, up to the end of the life. And yoga is a very good solution for that, because yoga is rather designed to control the functions of mind. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodha. Or yogaha manaha prashamana upaya. All these definitions of yoga make it clear that yoga is to control the functions of mind. So yoga provides the practical actions, practical processes to control the mind. And we can experience, nothing difficult. Every yoga practitioner has experienced this result, that we can control the function of mind. So if you can control the function of mind, mind will be corrected, so mind will correct the body also. So all the psychosomatic problems can be definitely overcome by controlling the mind through the different practices of yoga. And one more point is mental status, positive and negative. You know, mind thinks positive, negative, both. But there are people, they always think negative. And they always face the problems and complications in their life. They can't do anything in their life. So we have to think also properly. And that also can be guided by yogic practices. So in this way, yoga is far better as compared with other therapies, because yoga is able to control the total functions of mind. These are the external factors which we have considered. Now we will see some internal factors, which are rather little difficult to control. One is a congenital factor. There are some diseases by birth. Development of the organs is not proper, something is wrong, something is absent in the body. That also may have some reasons, that we need not go in details of that right now. But the congenital factors are there, and many times it is very difficult to cure all those problems for any pathy, including yoga also. Yoga can create to some extent, but still limitations are there. There are hereditary factors. as the modern medicine says, the genes are there with father and mother. So they have got some inherent qualities. So they work with that, and that may give rise to certain diseases. If father and mother they are suffering from diabetes, all their children can suffer with diabetes. If father or mother is suffering with arthritis, their children also will suffer with arthritis. All these things are there. So this is all hereditary factor is there. If yoga is practiced from the very beginning, then definitely we can overcome hereditary factors also. That is our experience in practice. There is an infection, development of bacteria, viruses and all that. Actually, there is a provision in our body to fight with these bacteria and kill them. Defense army is there. But certain cases, the bacteria and viruses, they come in large amount, and our vitality, our defense army is weak. Then the viruses, they go on increasing in number, large amounts, and then they create the problem. That is what is called infection. To kill the virus or germs is the only solution for that. And if your body is not capable of doing that, then definitely we have to get assistance outside. Maybe the antibiotics to some extent. But if we prepare our body properly from the very beginning with the practice of yoga, then our immune system will be developed to such an extent that it can react with any type of viruses. And there won't be any infection at all. So yoga can provide preventive measures in case of infection rather. There is an infarction. Infarction in a sense, there is this low supply of blood for a particular organ. Maybe some of the reasons, we don't go in detail right now, but there is a blood supply is not proper. Then that organ will not function properly. So the disease will start, abnormal condition. For yoga, this is a very good solution. Yoga is very good solution for this. Because of different practice of asanas and pranayamas, we try to regulate the blood supply properly to different organs, definitely. And we can overcome this problem for many of the cases. Tumor is an abnormal growth in the body. Why and how it happens, nobody knows. But if abnormal growth is there, the body function is affected. So abnormal condition, so disease. And normally the solution for this is removing the tumor by surgery. There is no other solution. Cancer, as you know, cancer is a misbehavior of our own cells. Our own cells, they don't follow the instructions from the nervous system. They do their own something different. That is cancer. It is not an external attack. It's an internal attack. And remove these cells from the body is the solution. So presently, maybe the radiation, burning of cells, or killing of cells with chemotherapy, or removing the cells by surgery, these are the ways and means used presently for overcoming the cancer. And to our knowledge, yoga also is not sufficiently strong enough to face the problem of cancer. The last and important and wide range of is there for tiredness. Different organs, different cells get tired because of overwork or because of undernourishment, whatever it is. And so the organ doesn't function properly. And so the disease starts. Here also yoga and yogic practices can give very good result. Because instead of doing all other measures for correcting the function of the organ, it is better to overcome their tiredness, stimulate them with proper energy, and make them work properly. All these things are definitely possible by yogic practices and not the medicines. And if you consider many diseases, this tiredness is a major factor for a large percent of diseases, where we can get a very good result with the practice of yoga. I will again come to the same point where we started. Normal function of organ is health. Abnormal function of the same is disease. And what is abnormal? I will not talk about that. It is above or below normal. Both things are abnormal. Sometimes it may be above the normal, sometimes maybe it may be below the normal, but still it is a disease. Just consider a sugar level. Sugar level is measured fasting and PP, that means 2 hours after lunch. So fasting sugar level may be about 100. PP, postprandial, after lunch, maybe 140 is normal. If sugar level is always high, instead of 100, it may be 120, 130, 140, like that fasting. And 180, 90, 200 maybe PP. If it is above, it is disease, a diabetes. But if sugar level is low, instead of 100, it is maybe 60, 50, it's called hypoglycemia. So that is also a disease. So sugar level high is disease, sugar level low is disease. So functioning of any organ, if it is excess, it is disease. If it is less, that is also disease. And to bring them to normal level is a disease-free condition, is a health, we can say, to some extent. So that can be managed by yoga, because yogic practices establish the balance between all this. No above, no normal. So we can say yoga is a process of normalization. I'll give a very simple example. You just consider a weight. Some people have got above normal, so obesity. Some people have got below normal. So both are the problems. Now the students coming to the class, all of them are taught same syllabus, same asanas, same pranayamas, everything same. And after completion of the class, if you refer the weight chart of every person, then we can find that those who are having the weight above normal, their weight has been reduced and bring them to normal. And those who are having the weight below normal, their weight has been increased and brought within the normal range. So with the same practices, weight can be increased, weight can be reduced also. If it is above normal, it will reduce. If it is below normal, it will increase. So in short, we can say yoga is a process of normalization. This may be case for the weight, this may be case for the cholesterol, this may be case for any other component of the body. So it's very easy to say that you practice yoga. Whatever you can practice, you continue practicing yoga. Whatever abnormality is there, that will be removed. And everything will come to normal by the practice of yoga. So it is a very simple solution, simple statement also. That whatever the abnormality is there, you try to practice yoga. That abnormality go and you will come to normal, that you will gain the health. And that is a common experience also. But only thing we have to observe that the person is not doing something wrong for a particular disease. And of course, we have to give the result within short period. No one is going to practice for a long period. Everybody wants to get health within short period. So we have to think of so many things, select properly, teach properly. So we get the result in short period. And that is what we do in the patient's approach to us for yogic treatment. So we properly select them. Now this is the principle of yoga. That means yoga is evolution. I told you in the beginning only. Yoga is a evolution. Yoga is a development. If you consider health, there also yoga works for the development. So these are the different levels. The bottommost level is death. Then it is a severe illness, mild illness, unrecognized illness, and then freedom from sickness. And then better health and positive health. So this evolution of health, development of health, from bottom level to top. So yoga provides this evolution. Yogic practices, definitely you can evolve your health. Leave aside about the death. But if the severe illness is there, by the practice of yoga, it will be mild illness, then it will be about unrecognized sickness, then it will be freedom from sickness, and then still you can go ahead, which is called a positive health. So we can improve our health from the worst condition to the positive condition also with the help of yoga. And yoga doesn't use any medicine. Yoga is only the practices of yogasana, pranayam, meditation, and all that Ashtanga yoga. So this is a very good solution for health, and this has been recognized by everybody in the world now. And so it is used for this treatment. Now how this connection is there for health? Actually, the question of health is not discussed in any ancient text of yoga. But you see, Patanjali has mentioned that the first obstacle in the journey of yoga is vyadhi, that is disease. So this is the first obstacle of journey in yoga. And that is perfectly right. If you have got any disease, you cannot do any yoga practice. But yogic practices are capable of overcoming this obstacle. There are certain yogic practices for certain diseases. So those are there. So we can make use of those and overcome this obstacle of disease. Hence, yoga can be used as therapy. That is our conclusion. And of course, the experience. So definitely, yogic practices like asanas, pranayamas, cleansing practices are the tools and ways and means for this purpose. And so, the yoga therapy is being developed everywhere. So hereafter we will consider different aspects of these things step by step. Hari Om.